By the time you finish this video, a lot of you will be gone. So much so that the person who clicked on it will no longer exist, and the version of you that remains will have no way to prove they're the same person. Because you're being constantly replaced piece by piece, and at no point do you become someone else, yet at no point do you stay the same either. Which is why you're the ship of Theseus. If you don't know what story that is, Theseus was a legendary hero who owned a ship. He sailed it on adventures for years, and during that time, the wooden planks would rot from seawater and weather. Whenever a plank rotted, the crew would remove it and replace it with a fresh one. Eventually, after enough trips across enough years, every single piece of that ship had been replaced. The Greek historian Plutarch documented this in his work Life of Theseus around 75 AD. His question was, is it still the same ship? Some people's instinct is to say yes. It sailed continuously and it maintained its function. It never stopped being Theseus's ship. The identity persisted even though the materials have changed. Some would say the moment 51% of it has been replaced, it's no longer the same. But there's no clean answer. The ship exists in this strange in-between state where it's both the same and completely different. And in a way, you are that ship. When people think about what makes them who they are, they usually point to surface level things. Your name, your nationality, your age, and those things rarely change. You still carry the same name you've always had. You're still from the same place, and your passport will say the same thing it said 5 years ago. But you are way more than that. Those things tell you close to nothing about your personality, your thoughts, and your experiences. Two people can share a name and be completely different. Your nationality was an accident of geography, and your birth date was one of time. Those are just administrative facts about you. What actually makes you who you are is everything beneath those surface labels. Your body, your memories, your beliefs, your personality, the subjective experience of being alive inside your head. And all of that is constantly changing. And speaking of change, if you watched this channel before, you probably noticed that the voice is different. That's because this is my real voice,
not the AI one I used to have.
I promised that the moment I made enough, I'd invest into a proper mic and do this myself. And thanks to you, that finally happened. So let me know in the comments if you prefer this
Or the AI one.
because we can always switch back. Either way, thanks for being a part of the reason this was possible. Anyways, physically, you don't look the same as you did 5 years ago. Maybe you started working out and built muscle, or you have stopped working out and lost it. Maybe you dress differently now, your face aged, you gained weight or lost it. Maybe you got a tattoo, a scar, a piercing, or just a different haircut. Maybe your posture has shifted from years of sitting at a desk. Wrinkles have formed where there were none. Hair grayed, thinned, or disappeared. These changes are visible in photographs. You can track them over time. Most people accept this kind of change without questioning their identity. You're an older you, a different look in you, but you're aware of it. What you might not know is how much more you're actually changing. Since you started this video, you've already replaced this much red blood cells. Within the next few days, your stomach lining will renew itself, and before next month, your skin cells will be different. In fact, over a year, you'll shed about 4 kilograms of dead skin. Your liver cells regenerate every 300 to 500 days, and your skeleton is largely remodeled over roughly a decade. Every single day, your body turns over approximately 330 billion cells, which is about 1% of all the cells in your body. This means in a year, you replace more than a third of yourself. In the 1950s, Jonas Friesen used carbon-14 dating from nuclear bomb site to trace how quickly different cells in the human body get replaced. His findings showed that the average age of a cell in an adult human body is 7 to 10 years. And according to Dr. Paul C. Abersold of Oak Ridge, about 98% of the atoms in your body are replaced every year. The specific matter that makes you up right now, the carbon, the hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, will be scattered across the planet in a few years, exhaled, sweated out, and flushed away as waste. Admittedly, some of you will never change. The neurons in your cerebral cortex, the outer layer of your brain, will always be responsible for conscious thought, decision-making, memory, and personality, those neurons largely stay with you for life. Most formed before you were even born and don't regenerate, although there are exceptions like the hippocampus, which is involved in forming new memories, can generate new neurons throughout adulthood in a process called neurogenesis. The vast majority of the cortical neurons will stay the same. This also applies to the lens of your eye and to most of your heart muscles. That makes roughly 10% of your body cells permanent or extremely long-lived. The rest turn over continuously. But this allows you to argue that you're not actually changing, since that 10% is what feels like you the most, the parts related most to your mind, your consciousness, and your lived experience. So maybe that stable core is the real you. And that's where you'd be wrong, because although your neurons aren't physically replaced, the actual information stored within is constantly being rewritten. Every time you access a memory, you don't just play a recording, you reconstruct it from fragments stored across different regions of your brain. And every time you do that, you alter it. This process is called reconsolidation. When you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily unstable. Your brain resaves it, and in that resaving process, the memory can change. Information gets incorporated, emotions shift, context gets reinterpreted, details are lost or reinvented. This means your memories aren't stable records, they're reconstructions that degrade and transform over time. Elizabeth Loftus spent decades demonstrating how easy it is to implement entirely false memories. In her 1995 study, she convinced about 25% of participants that they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, an event that never happened. She got a trusted family member to suggest the false event and ask participants to try to remember details. Within a few interviews, people developed vivid emotional memories complete with specific details. They remembered being scared, crying, being comforted by strangers, while none of that was real. In a later study, Loftus and her colleagues convinced half of their participants that they had taken a hot air balloon ride as children by showing them a fake photograph. The participants generated detailed memories of the experience, including the wind, the view, how they felt, all of which were false, because memory isn't about preserving truth. It's about constructing a coherent narrative that makes sense of your past. And that construction changes every time you access it. So even though your neurons stay mostly the same, the information they store doesn't. The patterns of connection between neurons are being constantly strengthened, weakened, created, and eliminated based on your experiences. This is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to physically change in response to what you think and do. Bogdan Draginsky showed this in how London taxi drivers who spent years memorizing the city streets have larger hippocampi than average. The region of their brain responsible for spatial memory physically grew from use. When they retired and stopped navigating, it shrank back. Learning a new skill, forming a new habit, even thinking a new thought changes the physical structure of your brain. But your sense of self isn't just memories, it's personality, beliefs, value, preferences, the collection of traits that makes you distinct from everyone else. And those change too, all the time. The music you loved 5 years ago might be unlistenable now. Genres that defined your teenage years feel embarrassing or boring, and artists you obsessed over seem shallow. You moved on to different sounds that resonate with a different version of you. Your political views may have shifted. Opinions you held with certainty now seem naive or wrong. Friendships that felt essential became distant, and relationships that defined you ended. Rodica Damian and Brent Roberts published a comprehensive study in 2015 analyzing decades of research on personality change. They found that all 5 major personality traits, openness to experience, consciousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, change throughout the lifespan. The changes are most dramatic in young adulthood, but continue into old age as well. You don't solidify into a fixed personality, you'll keep changing, yet you assume you won't. Jordi Koibag, a researcher at Harvard, ran an experiment where he surveyed more than 19,000 people between ages 18 and 68. Participants rated how much their personality, values, and preferences had changed over the past 10 years, and then predicted how much they would change in the next 10 years. Across all ages, people recognized substantial change in the past, but didn't predict much in the future. Everyone thinks they've finished becoming who they are. Everyone is wrong. The person you were 5 years ago would disagree with the current you about major life decisions, who to date, what job to pursue. The person you'll be 5 years from now will look at the current you the same way, with distance, confusion, maybe even embarrassment. This creates a paradox that the ancient Greeks identified in a different context, the paradox of the heap. If you have a heap of sand and remove one grain, it's still a heap. Remove another grain, it's still a heap. Continue removing grains, one at a time. At exactly what point does it stop becoming a heap? There's no clear boundary. No single grain makes the difference between heap and not heap. Change one cell, replace one memory, shift one belief, alter one preference. You're still you, but keep changing piece by piece, and eventually you're someone completely different. There was no moment where you stopped being the old you and became the new you. No exact threshold was crossed. The transition was slow and invisible, which brings us back to Theseus and his ship. Plutarch didn't stop at asking whether the fully replaced ship was still the same ship. He added a thought experiment. If the crew kept every original piece they replaced, and after the voyage ended, they took all the old planks and used them to reconstruct the original configuration. Now there are two ships, one that sailed continuously but has all new parts, one that has all the original ones but was recently assembled. Which one is the real ship of Theseus? Both have legitimate claims. One holds the history while one holds the materials. In the same way, your body sheds cells constantly. The atoms that used to be part of you leave and disperse into the environment. Theoretically, if you collected every atom that was ever part of your body and reassembled them in the right configuration, you'd have a physical copy made entirely of your original matter. Meanwhile, the current you is made almost entirely of atoms that were never part of your childhood body. Which one is really you? The continuous pattern that's been alive the whole time but uses different matter, or the reconstruction made from your original components? The question seems much easier to answer, but it reveals that identity can't be about matter. Matter is interchangeable. What makes you you has to be something else. It can't be pattern and information encoded in you right now as well, because those aren't stable either. Your neural connection reorganize, your memories are unreliable and changing, your personality develops, and your beliefs evolve. Thus, it can't be any of those as well. So what's left? Maybe nothing. Maybe there is no stable self or a definitive you to begin with. Buddhism has the term anatta, usually translated as no self or non-self. The concept is that there is no permanent, unchanging essence that makes you who you are. What you call yourself is actually 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness, all of which are impermanent and constantly changing. The self is a convention. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus made a similar observation. He said, "You can't step in the same river twice because it's not the same river and you're not the same person. The river is a flow of water, not any particular water molecules. And you're the flow of experience, not any particular physical or mental state." Modern neuroscience supports this, as there is no location in the brain where you reside. Consciousness emerges from distributed activity across many regions working together. Your sense of being a unified, continuous person is something your brain constructs to make navigation through life manageable. Thomas Metzinger, a German philosopher and neuroscientist, argues in his book that the self is what he calls a phenomenal self-model. Your brain creates a model of a continuous unified self, and because that model operates transparently, meaning you're not aware of the construction process, you experience it as real. But it's a representation, not the thing itself. This means that the unified you is optional architecture, a useful configuration, but not the only possible one. The ship of Theseus has been debated for 2000 years. Philosophers have proposed different solutions. Some say the continuously sailing ship is the real one because identity is about continuity. Some say both ships are equally valid. Some say neither ship is the same because identity requires both material and formal continuity. And some reject the premise entirely and argue that sameness isn't a meaningful concept for objects that change. So there's no consensus. The paradox remains unresolved, and your identity is the same paradox. You're both the same person you've always been and someone completely different. You're continuous and replaced, persistent and impermanent. The question has no answer because it's built on a false assumption that there is a clear definable thing called you that either stays the same or changes. No one can definitely say whether you're still the same person or whether it's still the same ship. The question will stay open. But the ship doesn't care. It keeps on sailing, and so do you.